So this video is solely for documentation purposes. And I don't know if anybody will ever see this other than me. But I just feel like I have to make it before I go tomorrow, because I just feel like I have this strong feeling like this trip is life-changing or spiritual or something. I don't know. I mean, I think I know, but I don't know. Like I told my cousin today, I almost feel like I got a personal escort from the ancestors. Like they came here to Atlanta to come and get me and take me home to Portland for some reason. And I guess I'll figure that out in a couple of days.
Although this journey to my maroon heritage starts in Atlanta, Georgia, it really began about 36 years ago in Kingston, Jamaica. That is where I was born and grew up until the age of 9. Since then, I've been living all over the United States. I still have a lot of familial and kinship ties back home. I used to go home at least once or twice a year, but honestly, this is my first trip home in about 4 years. If I was ever weary at the beginning of this journey, this life-size papier-mâché sculpture of arguably one of the greatest Maroon leaders and the only female national heroine, Nanny of the Maroons, was a good sign that I was on the right path. On this journey, I've asked my closest cousin Gavin, also known as Dutty Bootman, to accompany me to the parish of Portland. In the morning, we set out for a 3 to 4 hour journey from Kingston to Boston Bay. So after a long trek, we've reached our lodgings for the night. We're going to turn down and get ready for our big trek to New Nanny Town starting tomorrow. Maroons are the descendants of enslaved Africans who ran away and formed independent communities in the rugged interior mountains of Jamaica. Some of the first documented Maroon settlements occurred after the British invasion of the island in 1655. The Spanish slave owners freed their enslaved persons, and they formed communities with the indigenous Taino, also known as Arawak peoples. We are going to meet up with Maurice Lee, who owns and operates Kromanti Experience tours. He's going to relay some important oral tradition about Queen Nanny and the legacy she left at Pumpkin Hill.
With the ancestors. And what them said to her is that, she for hold on a little bit, because she them have a help. And that she wake up to find 3 pumpkin seeds in her pocket. Them 3 pumpkin seeds that may be there already, but in the timing, it was time for it. The guidance, You know what I mean? And she went and she planted those 3 pumpkin seeds. Everybody see the queen and go out in the fields and plant 3 pumpkin seeds. Everybody will just run to feed them like a hut. And whatever seeds they would have saved, they would have come out and start plant. It helped them to endure the battle, them have food in quick succession and things, and could have able to fight. You know what I mean? To have all of them land, we all look on with the eyes. Owned by us Maroons, sovereign lands. For me it represents, that faith, that hope, that tomorrow.
Maroons were known to be brave warriors, great herbalists, and powerful spiritualists. The first Maroon War with the British Army lasted almost 90 years, from 1655 to 1740. It ended when the British ceded land and autonomy to the Maroons in exchange for peace. There are 4 surviving and acknowledged settlements in Jamaica: Acumpong on the western side, as well as New Nanny Town, also known as Moortown, Charlestown, and Scots Hall on the eastern end. After leaving Pumpkin Hill, we approached Nanny Town for our hike to Nanny Falls, as well as a small class on indigenous plants and their uses.
Yeah, and it care, good for pain.
Mm-hmm.
And these
Nothing
things,
with it.
Yeah. And things that have some other spiritual energies and powers. I travel with too. My grandmother and sweep our yard with this. tent stake. Or roast stake. Because anyway, necklaces and stuff.
This plant is called Job's Tears. It's commonly used as adornment in necklaces. This is.
Let me get the leaf. I'm like now no smell. Nothing.
It's kind of green. That's a green smell, you know, bush.
You rub the leaf until it gets soapy.
Soap leaf bush?
No, that's going just run by itself because it's sweet insect to feed on it.
Yeah.
This plant ends up becoming one of my favorites. It's called sour barge, and it's used for hydration in the bush if there's no water source.
Yeah, fire. Huge.
Because right now I could have told us that I want to visit you, maybe I would know.
Young. This kind of young for years now still now. I wonder if I drink under them here, you know.
Long time
we have tell people say this young.
Yeah.
But
45 years past.
yeah, we still have to the same. Yeah, but we'll show you one again. I want to tell you a thing for you. You have water back in our people, huh? We are going for the next thing.
We're almost at the end of our hike to Nanny Falls. As you can tell, I've worn the wrong shoes, but I've made it.
I'll carry the bags. You keep your bush.
Is it not nice? Is it cinnamon?
Yes, it is. I like you. I love when I express it that way because many people afraid to use that word.
No.
Nanny Falls is a very important and spiritual place in the hearts and minds of the Maroons. It's a place where warriors would come before and after battle with the British Army. There's something important I have to tell you about Nanny Falls that no one mentions. It is absolutely frigid. It's located in the Blue Mountains in a place called Seaman's Valley. If there's ever a time in your life that you're going to feel hypothermic, this is it.
It's clear. It's clean. It's not dirty.
We've spent a good hour at Nanny Falls, so now we're going to start our hike back to New Nanny Town.
I realize black people don't have enough children.
What? That you say? Black people have plenty children, brother.
I feel like our grandparents and used to have children, like, yeah.
So how far is Charlestown from here?
It took us up to depending on how young we are. Yeah, but we always get tricked in believing, you know, and we never realize that the woman are the portal between the physical and the spiritual.
Depending on your attire and your own personal physical endurance, this hike can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 1 hour. On the way back, Maurice gives me more information on oral tradition, as well as he's going to show me the grave sites of two of the most important leaders in New Nanny Town history, Colonel C.L.G. Harris, as well as the incomparable Nanny of the Maroons.
Yeah, I remember we went and interviewed him for sure, yeah.
In a couple seconds, I will be standing and sitting in front of the incomparable Queen Nanny of the Maroons. She died sometime around 1755, and she is buried at this very spot right in front of me, and it's called Bump Grave. After spending a good amount of the day in New Nanny Town and Nanny Falls, we're headed over to our second Maroon settlement, which is Charlestown. It's also in the parish of Portland. We're trying to get there before sunset so that we can meet Colonel Marcia Douglas. As you can tell, we made it to our second Maroon community before nightfall, and this one is special to me. This is Charlestown. This is where my paternal grandfather was born about 111 years ago in 1908. As you can tell, we made it to our second Maroon community before nightfall, and this one is special to me. This is Charlestown. This is where my paternal grandfather was born about 111 years ago in 1908. And at this very moment, in this dip and turn, is when I felt the spirit of my ancestors, and I knew I had to slow down on the dancing or I would be in very big trouble in a second. For the sake of brevity, I had to do a lot of editing to this video. As you can see, the dancing went on for quite some time. As you can see, we made it to Charlestown before nightfall and left well after the crickets got out. I spent the whole next day at our lodgings in Boston Bay, just recovering and reflecting on all that happened the day previous, all the conversations that I had, all the people that I'd met, especially with the Colonel in Charlestown. She had some great messages from my ancestors. There was a lot of work that I needed to do, and some of that required me to come back home, and I was looking forward to it. I would be completely remiss if I did not take this opportunity to thank the people who made this experience possible. So thank you to Maurice Lee of Kromanti Experience Tours, Colonel Marcia, and the entire Charlestown Maroon Council.